Maplewood, Ohio, was the kind of place people moved to when they were tired of the chaos of city life. With its tree-lined streets, Friday night football games, and a single diner that doubled as a social hub, the town seemed untouched by the troubles of the outside world. It was the kind of community where people left their front doors unlocked and waved to every passing car. At the center of this small town was Emily Carter, a 32-year-old nurse at St. Mary's Community Hospital. To those who knew her, Emily was more than just another resident. She was a heartbeat of Maplewood. She volunteered at food drives, checked on elderly neighbors, and often worked the late shifts nobody else wanted. Colleagues described her as tireless. Friends described her as loyal. To many, she was an embodiment of kindness. So when Emily failed to show up for her morning shift one cool spring day, people noticed immediately. At first, there was confusion. Maybe she overslept. Maybe she was sick. But as the hours passed, concern deepened into alarm. Emily was never late. She was never absent without calling. Something was wrong. Later that afternoon, police located Emily's car at a trailhead just outside town. The discovery only deepened the mystery. The car was unlocked. Inside sat her purse, wallet, and phone, all untouched. The keys were still in ignition. There were no signs of a struggle, no blood, no footprints leading away from the vehicle. It was as though she had vanished into thin air. To investigators, it looked like a random abduction. Perhaps she had gone for a walk and crossed paths with the wrong person. The location, a quiet wooded area, only fueled that theory. Fear rippled through Maplewood. Parents kept their children indoors. Doors that had always been left open were locked and bolted. Candlelight vigils were held in Emily's honor as search parties combed through surrounding woods. For a town that prided itself on its safety, the thought of a predator lurking nearby was almost too much to bear. But as detectives began to dig deeper, the case grew far more complicated. Emily had always been viewed as almost saintly, dependable, selfless, without flaw. But the deeper investigators went into her life, the more they realized things weren't quite as simple as they appeared. Phone records revealed something unusual. Repeated late-night calls to a number saved under no name, just digits. The calls stretched for hours, often beginning after midnight. Bank records also raised eyebrows. Over the previous months, Emily had withdrawn thousands of dollars in cash, far more than her modest nurse's salary could comfortably support. And then came the neighbor's account, just days before Emily's disappearance. Shouting had been heard from inside her house. The voice was Emily's, raised, angry, nothing like her usual calm demeanor. These clues began to form a picture investigators hadn't expected. Emily, the perfect nurse, the perfect neighbor, had been keeping secrets. The mysterious phone number eventually led detectives to Dr. Alan Reeves, a respected physician at St. Mary's. Married, father of two, pillar of the community, Alan was the last person anyone would have suspected. But the truth was undeniable. He and Emily had been involved in a secret relationship for months. The messages between them told the rest of the story. Emily wanted more. She was tired of living in the shadows, tired of waiting. She demanded Alan make a decision, her or his wife. If he didn't, she threatened to expose the affair. It was enough to give Alan motive, enough to give him means, and enough to paint him as the prime suspect. To Maplewood, it seemed unthinkable, but it also seemed to fit, until the evidence pointed somewhere else entirely. When forensic teams processed Emily's abandoned car, they made a discovery that changed everything. DNA found inside the vehicle didn't belong to Dr. Reeves. It didn't belong to a stranger either. It belonged to Michael Carter, Emily's younger brother. Michael had grown up in Maplewood too, but unlike Emily, his life had been marked by struggle. He battled addiction for years, drifting in and out of rehab programs, unable to hold down steady work. Recently, he had returned to town, claiming he wanted to turn his life around. Emily, ever the caretaker, had taken him in and tried to help. At first, Michael insisted he had nothing to do with his sister's disappearance. He admitted he had borrowed her car the night before she went missing. That explained the DNA, he said. But detectives weren't convinced. His story wavered under questioning. And when they pressed him about the money Emily had withdrawn from her accounts, he grew evasive. It didn't take long for investigators to piece the story together. Emily had been giving Michael money, hoping to help him find stability. But recently, she had drawn a line. She refused to fund him any longer. Their relationship, already strained, erupted into heated arguments. Police believe one of those arguments spiraled out of control. In a fit of rage and desperation, Michael lashed out. What happened next remains unclear, but investigators are certain he staged the scene at the trailhead, leaving Emily's car, her belongings, even her phone, to create the illusion of a random abduction. For a time, it worked. Suspicion fell on Dr. Reeves, then on the possibility of an unknown predator. But the truth was much closer and far more devastating. When the truth finally came to light, Maplewood was shaken to its core. The town had braced itself for the idea of a predator in the woods, or a scandalous crime of passion involving one of their most respected doctors. But no one expected betrayal to come from Emily's own family. For those who loved her, the revelation was almost too much to bear. Emily had dedicated her life to caring for others, both as a nurse and as a sister. Her reward was betrayal from the very person she had tried hardest to save. The vigils continued, but now they carried a heavier weight. Not just grief, but a sense of disillusionment. The perfect image of Maplewood had been shattered. Emily's story became a chilling reminder that sometimes the danger isn't a faceless stranger or a hidden predator. Sometimes it's someone who shares your blood, someone you've trusted all your life. The disappearance of Emily Carter remains one of the most haunting tragedies in Maplewood's history. For investigators, it was a case that began with the assumption of randomness, only to reveal layers of deception, betrayal, and heartbreak. For the town, it was a loss that redefined what safety meant. And for those who knew Emily best, it was proof of a cruel reality, that the darkest secrets don't always lurk in the shadows of unfamiliar streets. Sometimes they exist within the walls of our own homes.